It's part 2 of my DVD and Blu-ray update for July 2024. Ahoy, hi everybody, and welcome to part 2 of my DVD and Blu-ray update for July 2024. So, since the last one, I've watched so many that I've had to do this over 2 parts. All spiel at the start of part 1, so go and watch that. But yeah, let's crack straight on with the rest of what I've watched since the last part. So this is an Indicator Blu-ray box set of the Adventures films. Adventures of a Taxi Driver, Adventures of a Private Eye, and Adventures of a Plumber's Mate. So these were films by Stanley Long, who was probably the biggest filmmaker of saucy comedies in the 70s, late 60s, 70s. This is limited edition 2175 of 6000. I have this on DVD. I have a copy signed by Stanley Long. They had a stall at one of the London Film and Comic Cons, and he was there, and I bought it, and he signed it for me. He said, "You'll enjoy these," and he was right. These are pretty much actually direct ports of those DVDs, but upgraded for Blu-ray. There's a few new features on here as well, but nearly all were on that box set. Just a couple of extra interviews that are new. It's a nice little set. So you've got the 3 films in their own little cases. Then you've got a big fold-out poster, which has got the posters for Taxi Driver and Private Eye. And then a booklet with various articles on being careful because there might be some boobs in there. But various articles about the films and the people behind them and the actors and so on. So these were a direct response to the Confessions of films, which Indicator are about to release this year, and I will be picking up, even though I've got those on DVD as well. And they are, basically just saucy sex comedies, which regular viewers will know have a soft spot for me. So the first one, Adventures of a Taxi Driver, is about a taxi driver in London and various scrapes he gets into along the way, including lots of naked women and sex and stuff like that. Second one is Private Eye. It's got a more linear plot. It's a guy who is standing in for his boss who's off on a case, and he's been told he's not allowed to take in any cases, he's just got to take messages. But this beautiful woman comes in with a case, and he can't resist getting involved, and it is the story of that case, but there's various saucy escapades on the way, but not as many as in the other films. And then Adventures of a Plumber's Mate is back to the style of the first one, where he's a plumber, and again it's just what happens on his rounds. Again, both of those have got overarching stories as well, but they're more portmanteau really, just various scenes connected loosely. But they're a lot of fun. I rated them all 4 out of 5. For what they are, they're very good. And it's a good little set. Another couple of films sent to me by Craig Huntley. These are, again, both Arrow test films or review discs. So first up is Psycho 2. So, had never seen this. Own the first Psycho. I've got a big Alfred Hitchcock box set with not most of his films, but most of his famous films in it. Psycho is a classic. I've always sort of steered clear of the sequels because, sequels to a film as big as Psycho, how good can they be? But I actually really enjoyed that. So Anthony Perkins is obviously Norman Bates, gets released from psychiatric hospital after being convicted of the murders he committed in the first film. Gets released, goes back to a motel, wants to live a normal life. Just trying to avoid spoilers here. However, he starts seeing his mother and getting phone calls from his mother again. There's some killings related to him. I can't really say much more without spoiling it, but it's really well acted. It's, held my attention throughout, even though it's a fairly long film. I think it's about an hour and 50 minutes. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I do recommend, if you're like me, sort of thinking, do I need to see any sequels to a classic like Psycho? Certainly Psycho 2 is well worth a watch. And this is Audition, so this is another Japanese film. I say another, there are some Japanese films in part 1. So this is an interesting film. I enjoyed it. I'll start with that. So, man's wife dies in hospital, leaving him and a young boy. He brings the young boy up. He basically, with persuasion, is told it's time he remarried. So his friend makes films, and his friend suggests that they need to do an audition for a film that might happen anyway, but he suggests they set it up so it's also an audition for somebody, for him to find a new wife. He reads through all these girls' resumes and everything, and he sort of pre-selects a girl who fascinates him. The audition goes well, and he's definitely interested, so he meets up with her, but she's not everything she seems, and it takes some turns, and again, don't want to spoil it too much, but really well done, really good film. This is series 3 of The Deuce, so loved the first 2 series. So this is based in The Deuce, which is an area of New York where all the prostitutes hang out and drug dealers and stuff like that, although this is mainly based around the sex industry. So the first series was really about prostitution. Second series was the move into porn, and this is more about the porn industry and the changes in the porn industry, but also the changes in that area as well. So it's led by James Franco, who plays 2 roles, twin brothers, and Maggie Gyllenhaal, with lots of various other characters and really good actors around it as well. This deals a lot with the AIDS epidemic as well. Yeah, just more great TV. Really enjoyed it. Ended well. They knew it was the end, so they, planned a proper ending for it. Got a little bit weird in the very last scene, but it sort of worked. But yeah, The Deuce. Highly recommend watching all 3 series of that. This is Last Night in Soho. So this is the Edgar Wright film, starring Thomasin McKenzie, Anya Taylor-Joy, Matt Smith, and various other people. So Thomasin is a girl in present-day West Country whose mother killed herself, and she's living with her grandmother, played by Rita Tushingham. She's really into fashion. She is obsessed with the 60s, as her mother was. It's sort of hinted. She sees her mother in mirrors and sort of talks to her, and it's sort of made clear that this isn't just her imagining her mother. She has a sight of some sort. She gets a scholarship to the London School of Fashion, or whatever it's called. Moves to London, goes into halls of residence, shared accommodation she's sharing a room with a girl who's very snobby and bitchy, so she leaves and stays in she gets a room in a house, renting from Diana Rigg, what I think was her last role before she died. She starts seeing these visions of this girl in the 60s, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, who wants to become a big star, but ends up basically being prostituted out by Matt Smith, who is an abusive boyfriend. And it's Thomasin affected by that in her life, and her changing as a result of seeing this relationship play out. Again, I'm trying to avoid spoiling too much, and her trying to find out what happened. And it's really well done, as you would expect from Edgar Wright. The guy's a genius. Really well acted. Very, very, very good film. Great soundtrack as well. So this is a Go Faster Stripe release of Booby Grapho Mishmash. So Go Faster Stripe is an independent label who put out comedy. Well, I was going to say they put out comedy DVDs. They've gone streaming only now, but they sort of do comedy releases of less mainstream acts. They release all Richard Herring stuff, which is how I've sort of hooked onto them. But they had a period last year where they were clearing out, basically, because nobody buys DVDs anymore. They were clearing out for a couple of quid each, loads of old titles, and basically any that I didn't already have, I just bought. Because for that money, it's worth a punt, whether you're going to enjoy it or not. I knew I'd enjoy this because I've seen Booby Grapho on a couple of things and always enjoyed him. He's a musical comedian. He sings songs, but he's very funny. It's a bit of a weird release in that it's not one gig. It's just a compilation of various gigs, promotional recordings. Some of it he's not even on. It's Nick Pin, his musical accompanist. Some of it is just him on there. But yeah, it's very, very funny in parts. Enjoyed it a lot. And this is Sean Hughes' Life Become Noises, which was the only Sean Hughes DVD I didn't already own. Sean Hughes was a genius. Very funny guy. Have seen him live in person. As you may not be aware, he died 52, I think he was, something like that. Maybe a little bit older, but in his 50s. A few years back. Great loss. But yeah, very, very good. This is the Dawson Watch. So I'm a big fan of Les Dawson, and I have most of his stuff on DVD. This was a BBC series he did for 3 years. Yes, it's a free series. Between 1979 and 80. And it's sort of presented as it's him in a studio surrounded by a few attractive women, and there's a couple of blokes floating around in some of them, with very 80s, late 70s, 1980s style computers around him and what have you. And each week is based on a theme. So it might be marriage, it might be politics, it might be science. And it's just basically a series of sketches around that theme. And Les doing his monologues and what have you. Some of it's very funny. Some of it is Les Dawson jokes that you've heard him tell 100 times. Some of it's very dated, but I enjoyed it all. What's interesting is that it's one of the earliest writing credits for Andy Hamilton, which if you're a comedy person, you know Andy Hamilton. But yeah, overall enjoyed. This is another Go Faster Stripe release. This is Simon Munnery's film. So basically he experimented for a while with a new way of doing comedy. Basically he'd sit behind the audience with this projector mechanism and project images onto a screen in front of them. So it'd be live, but they'd be watching the screen. And the projector thing could flick between his face and what was on. Is almost like an overhead projector. And he'd use it to do little animations and, show graphs and things like that. He's a very funny guy, and it's very good. This is Fleabag, season 1 and 2, or series 1 and 2. I never watched Fleabag when it came out. It didn't appeal, and by the time everybody was raving over it, I'd sort of missed so much of it that I couldn't be asked to watch it. But this came up in a sale, I think it was, and I thought, oh yeah, let's give it a go. Let's see if it is as good as everybody says it is. And it is. It is really good. I think Phoebe Waller-Bridge is a bit Marmite. You know, I think you either love her, you hate her, or you don't mind her. But I think, you know, you either get her or she's just going to really irritate you. But I really liked her in this. I don't need to explain Fleabag to you, surely. But yeah, it is very funny, very well done. Enjoyed it a lot. This is Age of Consent, which is a Michael Powell film. So James Mason plays an Australian artist who goes... you know, a successful artist whose work sells for a lot of money. He goes off onto this little island to get his inspiration back. Hires Helen Mirren, who's a young girl who lives on the island and who, you know, she forages, let's say, to raise money because she wants to move away, and he hires her to pose for her, mainly nude, and it's a story about her and her family and him and his old friends and the pair of them and their relationships. It's not a film where a great deal happens, but it's really well acted. It's a great looking film. It's does enough to hold your attention. It's well worth a watch. This is Lindsay Anderson's Britannia Hospital. So yeah, Lindsay Anderson, I really, I was going to say enjoy his work, that might not be the right word. I really admire his work. If Oh Lucky Man, stuff like that. So this is a satire about the privatisation, really, of the NHS and strikes and protests in the early 80s. It's very well done, great cast, very weird. It's not his best work. There's other stuff I prefer more. Music by Alan Price, which is a big boon for me as a fan of Alan's. It gets a bit strange at times, but very enjoyable. This is Inseminoid. So this is set in space on, I can't remember if it's on the moon. I don't think it says anywhere. I can't remember what planet it's on, whether it is on the moon or whether it's further afield. Basically, there's a space station and people start dying, and Judy Geeson gets taken over by this alien thing that's responsible for the killing, and she starts hunting down the rest of the people on there. So it's like Alien in a way, without the money spent on an alien by and large, and a lot more bright and a lot more British and a lot less moody and a lot less good, but it has its moments. It's perfectly enjoyable fluff, but yeah, it's not brilliant. Most of these indicator films, first of all, the ones with that sort of rainbow on the top, I picked up in a sale, so I only paid like £7-8 for them. This is The Pillow Book. So this is a Peter Greenaway film. So Vivian Wu is a woman who's, because of something her father used to do, and I don't mean anything sinister by that, was obsessed with writing on human flesh. Be it her writing on other people or other people, and by other people I mean men, writing on her. It's also a revenge story. Ewan McGregor's in it. He's very good in it. Again, I don't want to spoil too much of a plot. It's, being Peter Greenaway, it's a very visually fascinating film, and that's probably more important to it than the actual plot. But it's well acted. As I say, it looks great. Definitely worth a watch. Another indicator, this is the box set version of Irreversible. So it's a film I did already have, or do already have, on Blu-ray, I think. I think it's on Blu-ray rather than DVD. But wanted this set because it's a film that I was going to say I enjoy, but that really isn't the right word. It's a film I really appreciate. And it's, you know, I wanted a special set of it because of that. So it's a film by Gaspar Noé, and it's a story of a couple played by real life couple Vincent Cassel and Monica Bellucci. They go to a party. On the way out of the party, Monica leaves separately and she gets raped, and Vincent Cassel and his best mate, or it's actually Monica's ex, but they're also mates, go out for revenge and end up killing a bloke. That's not a spoiler because the film is told in reverse. So it's, I don't mean, you know, that sort of reverse. That's my impression of something going in reverse. But it's the scene of them being arrested and taken away, then the scene of them killing this guy, then the scene of them looking for this guy, then the scene of them finding out that she's been raped, then the rape scene, then them at the party, then them going to the party, then them getting ready for the party. Is basically the sequence of events. So you sort of learn stuff in reverse order, which is fascinating because it changes your assumptions as to why these things are happening and the consequence of them. And then at the end of it, you could sort of think, right, so if I watch that in the right order, blimey, that means this, this, this and this. Really well done. So it's famous really for the rape scene because it is unrelenting and nasty and violent and not at all sexy. But that's important for the plot. It's not going to be a film for everyone. It's in French. What's interesting with this version is that it also has a second disc with many years later. So it originally came out in 2002. In 2020, Gaspar Noé re-edited it in chronological order. I didn't bother watching that. I don't really want to. I'm happy with the original. That's what makes the film work for me. I might watch it one time in the future, but I didn't want to watch it straight after watching the original. So it's got that in it as well. It also, and loads of extras, as you'd expect. Also comes with the poster. Being Gaspar Noé as well is very stylised in how it's filmed. Lots of neon and funny camera angles and handheld cameras and shaky cam and all sorts of stuff. If you've watched any Gaspar Noé film, you'll sort of know what I mean. But yeah, if you can sort of stomach it, a great film. This is Brave New World, which was a short-lived TV series, unfortunately, because I enjoyed it. So it stars Han Solo, not Harrison Ford from Solo, whose name I can't remember and isn't on here. No, can't remember his name. And why's her name just gone out of my head? This is really stupid. I'm having a blank on names. It stars those three. I'll put their names on the... It might suddenly flash into my head, but if not, I'll put the names on the screen. So it's based on the Aldous Huxley novel. So it's a future world where everybody is encouraged just to have sex with whoever they like. There's different grades of people. People are graded. Alpha, beta, gamma. So the alphas are obviously the best. Then there's the betas who are, they're the workers of they're sort of the middle class, if you like, but they're also the ones who are sort of used for sex, but it's all consensual. And then the gammas are sort of, you know, the caretakers and things like that. There's also, outside of this blissful, they all take pills to control their moods and what have you. It's New London is what it's called. There's also the Savage Lands, which are basically, you know, real life as it was, when they put on shows for tourists from New London. And that's where he's from. And it's there's a revolution in the Savage Lands whilst they are there, and they escape with him, go back to New London, and it's how he fits in, how he changes things, how their attitudes have changed having been to the Savage Lands. It's really well done. Oh, her name is so annoying me. Enjoyed it a lot. Very good. I'd say it's a shame it only lasted one series, although it works just as a one series show anyway. This is series 2 of the Goes Wrong show. So I love Mischief Theatre. So the play that goes wrong made them famous. If you ever get the chance to see it, see it. It is hilarious. Peter Pan goes wrong. Ditto. Magic goes wrong. The comedy about a bank robbery. Christmas Carol goes wrong, which is a TV only thing. Then they had series 1 of the Goes Wrong shows, which was 6 separate plays, which again went wrong on TV. Second series was slightly different, so it was still 6 episodes, but the last 2 episodes were a set of mini playlets which were allegedly written by different members of the cast. They weren't. It felt like they were running out of ideas a bit, so I'm glad in a way. I hope they come back and do some more odd one-offs like Peter Pan or Christmas Carol, but I think the Goes Wrong show sort of ran its course. That said, it is still extremely funny at times. The cast are just so wonderful, and they're so well written and so well done that you just can't help but love them. Couple more. This is Secret Friends. So this is a Dennis Potter film that he wrote and directed. So Alan Bates is a writer who's having amnesia problems involving his wife, played by Gina Bellman, and he's struggling to determine what's real and what isn't, and it's very Dennis Potter. It's sort of sexual fantasies and stuff like that. It's not magnificent, but it's very Dennis Potter though, but he's done better. But I enjoyed it as a fan of Dennis Potter and as a fan of Gina Bellman as well. But yeah, it's not his best work, but it's well worth a watch. And finally, Harry Enfield's Norbert Smith: A Life. So this was a Channel 4 one-off made by Harry Enfield, and it's a mock documentary. It's done in the style of a South Bank show, which is, if you're not familiar, I'm not sure if it's still going. I've got a feeling it might still be going on Sky or Sky Arts or something like that. But it's a series hosted by Melvin Bragg, where he used to look at a certain person or style of art or film or music or what have you, and do a documentary about them and their life, all based around the arts. So, you know, it wouldn't be a footballer, but it would be a writer or a musician or a filmmaker or something like that. So in this, Harry Enfield plays Norbert Smith, who is a venerable old actor, as it says on the cover there, in the week of his 80th birthday, and it's just basically an overview of his career from how he got into acting and starting off in the 20s and 30s, you know, a very stiff upper lip, and then moving on to appearing in Carry On films and stuff like that. It's really well done. Harry Enfield is brilliant in it. It's very funny. There's some great pastiches in there of things like the Carry On films, which involve Barbara Windsor and Jack Douglas and Kenneth Connor in it. Stuff like the Ealing comedies and Lassie and all sorts. They're pastiched in it. Yeah, really well done. Very good. Okay, that's me up to date. Over an hour, over 2 videos of what I've watched since the last update. I must try and do these a little bit more regularly so that I don't have to be over 2 parts and I can just do them regularly. I'll try and get them done every month if I'm not too busy. And as long as I've watched enough, which I should have. Anyway, enough waffle. Thank you for watching. Like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Thanks. Bye.